Well, hello there, friends. So today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you what can go wrong quickly if you're messing around with aftermarket seat covers. Okay, so my customer has the 64 MGB and he bought the seat covers from a famous supplier in England. Okay, you would think that they would know better, right? So anyway, he bought the seat kit, tried to install it himself, and it was an impossible task. Okay, he never would have succeeded because it is very obvious that these seat covers do not fit. The patterns are wrong everywhere. So he couldn't stand these things, so he brought them to me so that way I can make him a whole full new custom set that actually fits his seats. So we're going to see how this turns out. Let's see if I can meet this challenge. All right, so here we go. So this is what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, look at that. Wow. Wait, we're not done. Oh my gosh, look at that. Can you spot what's wrong with these things? Put it in the comments if you can spot what's wrong with these things. So this is what they look like when you get them in a box. And you know what? I don't know if these are made in China. Maybe the person in China that made these has never even seen an MGB, but yet they're making the seat cover for one. Oh, what a tragedy. Looks like he had the same problem that I had with that last set of MG seat covers that I installed on another video. He was off to a really good start. So look how nice these seat frames have been restored. That is like really nice. Nice. One thing I said I was going to do for him is I'm not going to cut these up and use these for patterns, which would be a mistake anyway, right? Because nothing fits right. But I am going to use them as a guide to make my new seat patterns. So I'm not going to take these apart. I'm going to leave these intact for the customer. That way he can box them up and add them to the marketplace and try to get some of his money back. So this is the material that he chose right here. It's different from what the seat covers that you just saw. But you know what? We're making them all brand new. And he has that option of choosing a new color. And this is what he chose. It's a darker brown. And the seat inserts are going to get black top stitched pleats. So I asked the customer if he had any of the original old patterns for the original seats, if he still had them. He said no, he doesn't have them. So what we got to do then is we need to fabricate. We need to make something out of nothing. So that means that we have to take our own material and draw out our own patterns. It takes a lot longer to do it this way when you don't have original patterns, but I'm going to show you how it's done. So you can see right here, the pattern is way off. So the edge of the seat and the shape of the seat is here. So that means that this piece here, the back, is going to be too short. And that's that way on both sides. So we're going to take that into account when we're making our new pattern. So what I did is I marked center right here on both the seat and the material. Did that for both top and bottom. Okay, so I'm going to pull it up just a little bit. Just that way I have what they call seam allowance. Okay, I'm going to take my chalk and I'm just going to fill along that edge right there. Okay, so far so good, right? Until we get down to right here. That's where I got to make my change. Right there. That's where I see it, right there. Okay, but the thing is now I have to go from this edge to this edge right here, because this is going to be the where it ends. So I got to bridge this area from here to probably about right here. So I will take a straight edge and see what that looks like. Okay, so we know that this is a starting point, this is the ending point. So now we got to make it look natural, a natural curve. So I think that's it right there. I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch on the outside of that line. Okay, so now the reason for our center, and this is technique number 499. What that is you do half of the draw out like that. Then you fold it in half on your center. Okay, so what I'm going to do there is I'll mark the back side of my center right there, right here. That way I know where to fold it. So we'll fold it on that line right there, right there. Now I can even take my white China marker, Sharpie China marker. Some people call it a grease pencil. So what I'm doing here is I'm making an exact opposite. And that way you can't go wrong. And now you know that they're the same on both sides. Cut this one out. So I forgot to mention that usually I cut out the largest pieces first out of my material roll. That way it's always easier to start with the big pieces and then start cutting your smaller pieces later, because you can get your smaller pieces from other areas of the roll. So this is the biggest one. So that's where we started. So anyway, I cut that out, lay it out here. Now you can see that we are a little bit better than where we were earlier. So do you remember where this is always a problem? This one right here. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do to mark that on our pattern. So this is our corner right here, right? So all I'm going to do is just mark it right on that corner, just like that, on both sides. Then I am going to take my straight edge here, and I'm going to go up just about maybe 1/4 of an inch. I'll mark it with my Sharpie right here, right here. Now we know that that's where we stop sewing. So we stop sewing right there at that area. So when we're done, it's going to look more something like that without that. Okay, we got that one out of the way. That was easy, huh? Next, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do these seat inserts right here. So I'm just going to do a top stitch pleat in black thread. That's what I'm going to be doing here, probably 1-inch pleats. So I just made some blanks here for my seat inserts. So I'm going to be putting in 1-inch pleats. So I will find my center. On here I'm seeing 14 inches, so I'm just going to put a 7 right there. Okay, that's the center, but that's not where I'm going to put my first pleat. So the pleats have to be on either side of center. So instead, I'm going to put a mark on 6 and a mark on 7, mark on 8, mark on 9, 10. I'll go 5, 4, 3. Now I'll do the same to the other end here. Find my center, which is right there. Okay, move it over 1/2 inch, because I'm putting a pleat on either side of center. So that's a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5, 4, 3. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pleats. Now using my long straight edge, you can tell that this thing has been through a lot. I've had this thing for decades. Don't know where it came from, but I know I've never been to Tennessee. Anyway, take my long straight edge. We'll start drawing out these pleats. So what I'm going to be using here is 1/2 inch scrim. You can see it right there. That's a 1/2 inch with that real tight backing. Okay, we don't go with the cheap stuff. We never go cheap on our customers, right? So I'm going to do the 1/2 and 1/2 method, which is technique number 29. Okay, I know it's a pretty low number because it's so important, because you use it so often. So what we do is we glue 1/2, set it down, glue the other 1/2, set it down. So I know some of you rocket scientists out there in the comments land, okay, you're saying, well, how come you didn't let the glue dry for 5 or 10 minutes before you put it together? Okay, the reason for that is because if you put it together when it's still wet, it actually adheres better to fabrics. So soft to soft. Okay, you don't have to wait 5 or 10 minutes. You just put them together right away. This is a perfect example when you put in vinyl or fabrics to foam. Okay, so now, I mean, it's on there, right? Okay, so the 5-minute rule is usually if you're putting something hard, like if I wanted to glue this vinyl onto this wood here on this table, I'd probably let that dry for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on your climate situation, if it's cold or hot outside. Okay, and I would let it dry before I put the two pieces together. But almost always when it comes to soft materials like this, I always put them together right away. I've seen arguments in comments, so you know who you are. So this might be kind of hard to see because I'm sewing black thread over a dark brown material. But here we go. Now when sewing something like 1-inch pleats here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to make sure that you're sewing a straight line, because if you're off 1 millimeter on one side or the other, you're going to see it. And we don't want anybody to notice, because they know that you're going to be the one that did it, right? So don't do that. Just sew a straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and split our two seat inserts here now that everything is sewn up so I can make the one pattern. So what I see here is that seat insert, oh, actually it feels a little short on this one. Yep, I can see that. And this is what I'm talking about right here. You see the seat insert ends right there? But look at all that foam behind it. Which means that, look at that. You see what I'm saying? It's short. This seat insert should probably be down here someplace. Okay. So the center of this seat cover right here, the center is probably actually right here. Right between these two pleats, and that's what I had marked earlier. So we're going to go ahead and match up our pleats just like that. And now we know that our insert is at least that wide. So I'm going to go ahead and make that another inch wider. That's what I'm going to do. So if I want this panel here to be an inch just like all the others, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add in my 1/4 inch right here. You see that? And this is going to be my sewing allowance right here. And what's going to be showing is this line. So I'm going to mark these at 1 1/4. One 1/4. 1 1/4. Draw those out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this. So I'm going to cut right next to that sewing line without actually cutting it. And that's going to be our edge. So the top edge here has a slight curve to it. And you can see this one here is straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a curve just like that. Just draw it in with my chalk. Now we'll sew that one. So now that's our seat insert pattern. After some thought and evaluation, I have determined that I believe that this side panel right here is probably at least 1 inch too wide. So you can see where the seam is like way down here. Okay, well, granted that this isn't down yet, right? But even though, look at the edges right here where my thumb is. So what I will be doing is on the new pattern, it's probably going to end up looking more like this. So now I'm going to make these side panels right here for the full, that way we get a full face insert. Okay, so what I did is I cut me a blank here, larger than the size that I'm going to need, so I can make my pattern. So, like I always say, there's more than one way to get things done. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take this cover here, because I know that that's really the shape that we need, right? Or I could just draw it out on the cushion. But I'm going to show you this way. It's just another way of doing it. Okay, so I'm going to lay this here. And I know that from earlier that I was going to go about 1 inch in. So that's all I have to do. So following the following the shape right here, which is easy enough to do because I just lay it right over that welt, or beading. Some people call it beading. So I guess I'm going to stop it right there. And then I will make this come about like that. And this is where we get artistic. Okay. So I'm going to also leave it a little bit longer on the bottom. And I believe that's our pattern. So I'm cutting on the outside of the white line because I'm going to be putting the 1/4 inch scrim. And the reason I'm going to be using 1/4 inch scrim is because the customer has requested a French stitch instead of the welt, or beading, or piping as some other people call it. So anyway, it'll be really difficult to do a French stitch if this was backed with a 1/2 inch foam. Now I need to make 3 more of these. Because I have 2 seats. So I'm going to make a left and a right for 2 seats. So the easiest thing I'm going to do right now is, when I marked it out in white chalk. So what I will do is just flip it over like that. And then you can either use it in your hand, like that, which transfers the chalk. Or sometimes what I used to do is I used to just use my flat edge or straight edge like this, my yardstick. And that transfers over. Write in the comments how you like that one. So now that I have a left and a right, all that's left to do now is just to flip them over and trace them out. Now these are going to get foamed in the 1/4 inch scrim. So you can see that backing on the foam right there. So that's for the sewing. Now we'll just sew everything up on the white line. And we'll trim everything off. We're going to cut right next to the thread without actually cutting the thread. And that there is the seat panel. Do the same thing to the other 3. Next is this bottom front skirt right here. So I can see that if I lay it flat, that's kind of what it's supposed to look like right there. So I'm going to leave it a little long. It never hurts to leave it a little long on the bottom, because you can always make it shorter later. So I can see that's the curve right there. And then I can see that it's folded under. So usually what I do is I'll leave about like an inch that I can fold under. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that right there. Okay, so what I am seeing is right here, this is the corner, and that will go to here, just like that. Now all we got to do is go to the other side, mark that, so that we know that that mark is opposite of this mark. So what I do then is, I see that's about 6 inches there, so I'm going to go 6 inches here, join those two lines. Now I can cut this out. Go at least halfway, right? Okay, now all we have to do, I can mark where this line is, right there. So this is technique number 698. Is where you just fold it in half, like that. I'm going to match up these two lines. Then I can make symmetrical pattern. And I know it's going to be the same. Exactly, right? There we go. Just got to make another one for the other seat. So now for technique number 62. What that is take all your small scrap pieces like this. Instead of leaving everything on the table like that, just pick them up, put them in the trash. So do you remember when we made this insert, I measured all these pleats at 1 inch, but I left an extra 1/4 of an inch on each end to allow for seaming allowance. So that's what we're doing right now. Is this technique is pretty important, number 73. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to measure from the back side. You can see I started doing it already because I'm like on cruise control, right? So anyway, I'll mark the 1 inch on the inside here. And the reason that we're doing that instead of just sewing it together is we don't want this here to be a narrow or a wide pleat. We want it to be consistently straight along with all the other ones. So let's go ahead and draw our straight edge there, so that way when I sew on that line, we have our seam allowance here, and we have our 1 inch pleat. Now I have a lot of pieces that I'm going to be sewing together. So like I was saying earlier, you know, you can always put the two pieces together like this face to face and then just start sewing, right? But you don't know what's going on the other side over there. So this way, with this technique, you're sewing on the black line and you know you're going to have that straight pleat. So you can't screw it up. So there we have it. Nice straight pleat on the end. All the pleats are consistent. They're all going to be the same size. Now we'll find the center on the bottom by folding it in half, just like that, and marking it. Okay, so I knew that it was going to fall between these two pleats right here. So we will take our other bottom skirt here. We'll match up those two center marks right there in the middle. And what we will do is we will start in the middle, which is technique number 299, is starting from the center. I mean, you could start from one end and then work your way to the other end, but sometimes they're not going to match up, right, if you're just taking that chance. But if you start in the middle and work your way out, flip it over, start in the middle and work your way out, you know it's going to be successful 100% of the time it's tried. There we go, that's our full face insert. Now we'll be moving on to the sides next. Oh, it just occurred to me. I forgot to show you how to do the top stitch on this piece here. So we'll do that now. The white line, we're going to fold it. We're going to do a top stitch. There we go. Those of you that stick with me every week know how the technique numbering system works. The lower the number, the more important it is. So we are now at technique number 16. That's 1-6. The number is so low because it is so important, and what that is to check your work. So what we will do is we will lay what we just made onto our cushion, and we are going to check our work. Make sure everything fits right, looks right. Remember, we made this a little bit longer. Now it goes over. Now you don't see the seam on the front side anymore. This here is fitting pretty good. Looks like we're on the right track. Now I'm going to be patterning out the sides right here. So what I did is I marked a blank, cut that out, and we're going to start making our pattern with that. Okay, now I'm going to take my blank material, I'm going to lay it over the top. And this is the best way to go here. Okay, lay this down nice and flat, just like that. Okay, so now just start drawing it out. And this is easy because we have the welt right here to use as our guide. I can feel it right there through the vinyl. I can feel it. And I'm just going to continue that. All the way around. So I marked off half of it. So this is what we end up with right here. So I marked the center right there. So I think that that's going to do nicely. So I'm going to just trim this out because I'm going to be foaming these pieces. So I don't cut on the white line, remember? I cut on the outside of the white line if we're going to be sewing it up. Okay, so that's my half mark right there. So remember what we do? What do? We fold it in half, right? Like that. That should be our piece right there. So now let's make one for the other seat. So the side panels here on the original seat covers didn't have any foam. It was just vinyl only. But I'm going to go one step further here for my customer and give him something a little bit extra special. Okay, made the little pockets for right there. They go right inside like that. So I made those. So this is where I'm going to go off the rails. I'm not going to put a welt or or beading or piping like the original seat had. What the customer requested was a French stitch. So this is going to get real exciting. So I decided what I'm going to have to do right here where the insert area is the French stitch is going to have to stop right here. It's going to go this way, but it's going to have to stop right here at the insert, where at the insert on this side I'm going to just do a top stitch till I get to the other side and then continue with the French stitch. Okay, let's go for that French stitch. So, a little bit of advice before you do a top or a French stitch or something, check your bobbin. Make sure you're going to have enough there to complete the task. The last thing you want to do is run out of bobbin halfway through that top stitch. That's a tragedy. Well, that's the first half of the top stitch there. So to complete the French stitch, So now for technique number 4138. That would be to stop the French stitch here at that center insert. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. So right there, I'm getting close. Working it by hand. Lift the foot so I can see where the needle is. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to put that thread right between those two panels. Do the full rotation, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to pull it out. Leaving it here so that way you can see it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to leave some long strings here. Okay, I'm going to pull that thread to the back. So now I have both threads at the back. Then we'll hand tie them. The reason I'm doing the hand tie and not a lock stitch is because we don't want to see an ugly lock stitch right there. So I'm just tying it up on the back. Now that's what it'll look like from the front. Now we'll just continue it on the other side. So just as before, what we'll do is pull that top thread in. See if I can hook it. I don't have my glasses on. I think that's it. Okay, now just tie these two together. So this is what I was trying to achieve here. I'll flip it right side up so that way you can see it better. Okay. So we have a French stitch, right? We got our French stitch, but I didn't want to do the French stitch over the seat insert here, so I stopped it there. So the French stitch turned into a top stitch, just like that. Next is to sew these weird little pockets here. This is a very, very strange situation. Now I'm going to sew a top stitch on the back side of that little pocket. So that top stitch there is mainly to help this hold its round shape. And there is a little bit more special going on here. The customer requested storage pockets on the back of the seat. So that's what I'm going to be doing right here. Is cut out this piece and I'm going to put some elastic in there and we're going to make a storage pocket. So now take a look at this. So you know how we have this problem here with all these kits always do this? Okay, because you can see that it's just a single layer of vinyl, right? Okay, this is my answer right here. So what I did is I doubled the vinyl. I folded it over and did a top stitch, which gives this a nice reinforcement, which tells me that that's probably not going to happen again. So now the last thing to sew together is the back and the front. It's easier to add on this headrest escutcheon here before you put the two pieces together. So now we're going to move on to the bottom cushion. So look, this is what we have here. Okay, looks like it's a little narrow on both sides. So I'm going to take that into account when I make my new patterns. And we'll make this one here look a lot better. Okay, I'm going to draw up these seat inserts here. Okay, so I made a blank here for the side panel. So I know that the seam is right there and right there, and I can feel the welt or the beading or the piping, as some people might call it. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and draw right on it. Just like that. So remember how this is a little bit too narrow. So instead of sewing on that line, I'm going to just bring it out a little bit more. I'll bring it right there to that edge, like that. Now for the headrests, he actually has an extra set of covers here. I'm going to go ahead and cut one up and use it for patterns. So I got it all marked up. This is the bottom, this is the top, this is the back, and this is the front. So there's an overlap here on the bottom, so I also marked that. That way I know where it starts and where it ends. Okay, let's start sewing up the headrests. Well, it just occurred to me that the bottom cushions here, that they didn't have any burlap. So I found me a piece of burlap here. I'm going to go ahead and glue that on there. So that way it isolates the foam. It'll be between the foam and the frame here. Now you can see here how the frame is separate from the cushion and it's kind of moving around. What we are going to do is we're going to attach these two together so that way it doesn't move like that, because we don't want it migrating and shifting around underneath that seat cover in the future, especially when somebody's sitting inside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these two together. Now it's time to put everything back together. Yay! So I'm going to be installing this cover here. This is easier than the other one for you to follow. So let's get going. So we're going to start off by gluing the seat insert. You can see where the previous one here was glued on. We're going to be doing the same thing. It's just the center right here, the center of that pleated insert. Okay, so now this is crucial. You might only get one shot at this because of the contact adhesive. So what we're going to do is we're going to match up all these edges with these edges. Okay, so let's make sure that it's going to be where it needs to be, like right there. Okay, this is the same to the back. And the sides. Now it looks like we got the sides down pretty good. So now what we do is you take your flat hand like this and you put it up against this corner on the inside, and then you just roll this over like that. And we'll do the same to the other side. So when you're working with something like this, it's always a good idea, if you're going to be putting it face down, to put it on something soft here so that way you don't damage the vinyl. So whenever you're installing vinyl, it's always a good idea to use a heat gun, especially if you're in a cold climate or it's winter time. So what you want to do is you want to soften it up. So you want to get it warm enough to soften, but with vinyl you don't want to get it so hot that you're going to damage it. So what I have here is these customer supplied, they're like the C-clip. So this is what we're going to be installing. This is what holds the cover on. Okay, you take the C-clip, put it right there and smash it down. Just like that. Now we have to go around this frame, the backrest mount right here. So what I have to do is I have to make a relief cut just behind that part of the frame right there. You can see it right there. Got to get behind that. That way this tab here is exposed. So you can also see that I'm going to have to make some relief cuts here on the vinyl to go around these metal bars. So one way to do that if you're not sure of yourself is just to take something like this to mark where the bar is. Okay. Then what you can do is you can make some relief cuts. And not quite to that line, but probably 1, 2, or 3. Like that. Now you can tuck it under. Just like that. Now we'll just finish putting on all the metal clips. Now if you have any small little wrinkle concerns, now's the time to take care of that. Really all that's left now is to just get rid of the white china marker. So what I use is what? If you've been watching me for however many episodes and I'm doing this, what am I using? Put it down in the comment section. Also, if you've gotten any glue overspray, remove that. Check everything. Make sure you don't see any glue anywhere or marks. And that, my friends, pretty much does it. So the backrest is going to be pretty much exactly the same thing. So I'm not going to bore you guys with installing that backrest. Okay, for you newcomers, this is what I'm using. Zip. So there was a really sharp edge here that I trimmed off with a hacksaw blade, if you've ever seen that video. So anyway, it's still pretty rough, and I don't want to see that through my seat cover. So what I decided to do is I'm just going to get some of this white Dacron pad, and I'm going to put that down first before I put the cover on. Okay, now we're going to attach this front skirt here. And what I forgot, because I'm working in cruise control again, is I went and I sprayed glue right here. So the glue helps you set it while you're working on it. Then we'll attach these large C-clips. Now we'll add some glue to the frame back here in the cover flap. Okay, next is to take something like this scratch awl here to find your mounting hole for the screw, which is right there. So it is right there. I know you're not going to believe me, but I got it on the first try. Okay, where's my screw? There it is. So now for technique number 249. What that is we have this little axle here, which is for the control lever. So what that technique is to make that hole. Some guys, what they will do is they'll just cut it out with the scissors, and sometimes it doesn't look so great, or maybe they cut it a little bit too big. So this is the technique. spiffy. I'd say old chop. So here we go. There's the before. And the after. So do me a favor and put in comments what you think. Honestly now. Anyway, like I was saying,